Hey guys, we are live for another episode of Embrace the Chase, and this is episode 34, and I am stoked out of my mind because, as always, we are interviewing over 100 entrepreneurs, authors, and speakers over the next year in pursuit of writing a book and compiling all their information together so that we can help make this world a better place. And I'm pumped because today for episode 34, we have Teo Rockson, who's an incredible entrepreneur and speaker. For those of you that do not know him, you are in for a treat today. To give you guys a little bit of an insight, he is the CEO/speaker of UID Management, as well as the partner of Thought Leader Academy. And I don't want to spoil anything at all, but Teo, is there anything you'd like to add to that, good sir?
No, I mean, you did a good job, and that's very, very much about what I am on the professional level, but on the personal level, definitely what you call a walking contradiction. I'm a Nigerian, and I grew up in 5 countries and 4 continents by the time I was 18. And a lot of that meant that I was the minority everywhere that I went. You know, for me, the idea of being different was something I became very familiar with early on. I remember the first 9 years of my life being spent in a military dictatorship. And so my first encounter with leadership was watching ruthless human rights violations being suppressed, watching people flee for expressing opinions. And that was sort of what really laid the foundation of what I did today. I began to wonder what type of people, what type of leader it would take to lead such a diverse group of people that don't know or trust each other. And then you imagine going from there to a civilian government, and then shortly after that to like traveling to all these countries, and you find yourself as this 10-year-old skinny Nigerian kid with thick Nigerian accent in a French-speaking country, American international school, going through puberty. And then you start to understand that the idea of connecting across cultures is going to be something that's forever going to be something that's a personal thing for you, and as well as a survival instinct. And that's pretty much what laid the foundation for what I do today with UID Management. UID Management is a consulting firm that helps a lot of companies and corporations all over the world deal with diversity and inclusion, but also creating those environments that allow people to effectively be themselves as who they are, but also allow them to build cultural intelligence. So you did a good job. I just wanted to give a little background with that.
No, I love it. If you could so I know that was like a quick broad overview of your story, but if you could maybe kind of hit a little bit more of the heart of your story and kind of talk about what led you to want to become a speaker, because I know a lot of people, and they have backgrounds where they feel like they want to give back and obviously make the world a better place. They do it with different mediums. So why did you choose speaking?
So speaking chose me. I didn't actually choose speaking. For me, when I was 10 years old and 11, I knew that I wanted to do something on the global stage. Didn't quite know what that vehicle would be. Didn't know what path that would be. I thought initially it would be sports, and I thought it would be the United Nations, and I thought it would be law. And I tried all these things continuously. And when I graduated from college, 2011, I found myself in Virginia, getting ready to really take on the world. I was like, I'm going to do it. I've done all the volunteering work in college. I was like chief marketing officer for 2 nonprofits. The world is ready for me. And then I applied to over 85 jobs, and all of them gave me this magical answer: no. Ha! And I was like, okay, cool. Over 85 people are basically telling me I'm not good enough. And I started to panic. I really panicked because I'm not a citizen. And I was like, man, I'm a foreigner in this country. In order for me to stay here, I need to find a company to sponsor me. And so that's what I did. I reached out to people that I worked for previously and said, hey, look, I know I did a good job for you. Would you consider hiring me full time? Didn't even care what the job was. And luckily, one of them said yes. And when I got sponsored, I thought I was doing digital media. They told me, psych, you're going to do sales, and here's your quota, $10,000 a month. And so this identity that I created for myself, this world I created for myself as someone who's going to be this world changer, was all of a sudden snatched. And I found myself lost in a world I had never imagined for myself. I was now worried about what my next client was going to do or how I was going to make money for the company. And so I felt lost a little bit. And for 2 years, I didn't really do anything. I would stretch out this 2-hour or 3-hour job, work into 8 hours, and sometimes just bang my head against the computer and think to myself, can't believe that this is going to be the next 60 to 70 years of my life. And I would continue to think this way. I would continue to think this way up until one fateful day. It was August 22, 2012. I was driving to the same place of work, and And, in my burgundy Toyota Camry, I just merged, and I got to the part where the road merged into the highway. I stepped in the accelerator pad to hit the standard 60 miles per hour. And then all of a sudden, this car cuts my lane in half because it loses control. And I'm swerving out of the way so that I don't get hit because I can see it coming. And in the process, I smash into the left guardrail, the right guardrail, boom. Then hit one car, boom, two cars, boom. Back to the left guardrail, boom. And then when it's on the left guardrail, the car is perpendicular like this, and it's about to flip over this bridge. And I'm 22 years old, saying to myself, have you done everything you said you were going to do in life? And that was the only question that came to mind. Have you done everything you said you were going to do in your life? And I couldn't answer that question. I couldn't answer that question in the affirmative. And so, these moments happened really, really quickly. My adrenaline kicked in, slammed the brakes, and then somehow managed to get out of the car. And if you were standing right there with me, you'd have seen a car zoom past me. You'd have seen debris all over the floor. My car completely totaled. But the other thing you'd have seen would have been my face in complete shock, and I was completely unharmed. But that was a wake-up call. That was my wake-up call. I decided that I was going to take my identity back that I felt like I had lost and move to New York City. Moved to New York City to get my MBA, but here's what I did. My MBA, Fordham was at night, and New York City was my campus. And essentially, throughout the day, I would go around figuring out how to tell my story of cultural competency, how I ended up being this guy that could sort of fit into any culture, and what I learned from that. I started to write more about that, and I eventually launched a podcast around the concept of bringing people all over the world to talk about embracing a global identity. And then out of that, I started to get emails from people. This is such a very gradual process because I thought I was doing something just to learn about myself, and then hopefully people will build a tribe. But people started to tell me, I thought I was alone. Thank you for sharing that story. Or that guest really did something to me. Thank you. You just really opened the world for me. I never really thought that there were other people like me. And then I started to think, oh my goodness, wow, there's actually a community of people. Didn't quite know what to do with it, but I sort of felt validated a little bit that I should continue down this path. And then one of those low moments for me when you're figuring out, like, man, how am I going to get paid for anything in New York City, and I still got school to go to? Or a listener reached out to me and said, have you ever thought about speaking? And I was like, I don't know. And she said, yeah, well, you should speak at the World Bank because there's like this group of people, there are diplomatic kids that do this thing once a year. I've been listening to your podcast for a while. I really love your story. I think they would benefit from it. And then she was like, it doesn't really pay anything. But I was like, nah, it's all good. Just have World Bank. And that's all I need to hear. And I will figure out a way to get there. And so I did that. And amazing thing happened. These kids really got the message. And it really just opened an idea into me. I started to learn that, okay, I had taken my identity back. I started to learn how to tell my story. And I built a community. Now I'm leveraging that to speak to more audiences. What if I really sat down and really understood the value of what it is that I do? And I sat down, I started to think about it, and I understood that the value was really communicating. And I needed to start to show up more. I was teaching people how to communicate effectively across cultures. I was also teaching people how to tell their stories and tell the message. That's what people resonated more with, the authenticity of that. And you got to understand, for someone like me who would initially always try to fit in because it was always a different one, it was a little weird to really find yourself as fostered almost as this guy that's like almost this beacon of a symbol of like, you're the guy that's different. You're going to basically show us how to really overcome that. And I had to really wrestle with that internally. And I was like, if you don't want to go back and do a job that you hate, and if you really want to make the global impact that you want to, you're going to have to really step into what it is that's your greatness. You've been gifted this opportunity to have lived in all these countries. You've been gifted this opportunity to have an impact of an audience that's now in 150 countries. How are you going to leverage that into a more meaningful way? And so I started to really reach out to more organizations. Got around that I was a good speaker, or people liked what I said, and they started to refer me, and then I started to build a whole Rolodex in that. And then from podcasting, I went to speaking, and from speaking, I went to podcast speaking and consulting. And then here we are today being interviewed on one of the greatest shows in the world. So, yeah, that's part of what happened there. But yeah, wake up call to what I'm doing now.
That's an incredible story. So, quick question for you before we jump over to your current projects. How exactly did you get your podcast going? Were you doing iTunes? Were you doing YouTube? Like, what were you doing?
iTunes. I mean, it was everywhere podcasts. iTunes, Stitcher, basically had a feed that fed to all those public publications. And my podcast is still my favorite thing that I do today. Actually, one of the episodes is coming out very soon today. And I've done over 300 episodes now. But what that podcast really did for me was help me get comfortable telling my story. A lot of times I'm just here recording, in my apartment, and so I started to really, okay, that's how I like to say it. This is how I like to say it. I didn't even know back then, but it was actually training me for speaking because I was becoming more comfortable with my voice. And then it became this it became this alternative education system for me because I had guests that would come and basically tell me all about their newest projects. And I would just sit down and ask like a school kid. And I didn't have to be scolded for this because it was for serving the purpose. I'm like, tell me why, how, what? And they'll tell me that. And I was downloading all these pieces of information. And that helped me with stories as I would go on stage. And I'll be able to relate that to certain different types of audiences. So, yeah.
So then what's your favorite piece of advice? I know that's kind of a vague question, but piece of advice that you've learned from somebody over all 300 interviews that's impacted you the most?
Wow. There's one that I just had a recent interview with a guy called Scott Mouse, and he said something to me that really struck me. He said there are 3 reasons people fail. He said, whether it's they don't try, they give up, or they don't work to their potential. And he said those are the 3 reasons. And failure doesn't happen for you. Failure doesn't happen to you. It happens for you. And what I got from that was that a lot of times people have this wrong idea of what failure is. They think that they have to, that once you fail, it's this I'm done type of thing. But it's actually a process and a clue as to what you can do to grow yourself. It's actually a way for you to understand where you need to shift and move forward. And so for me, with my personal experience of, we didn't get to all this, but I'm someone that's been fired twice in the span of 3 years. I've had a near-death experience. I've quit a job, I've been broke, I've owed the IRS money. All these things were happening on the path towards me being consistent with the podcast and telling my story to the point where I speak consistently over throughout the year, and I consult on all these things. When I look back, all those moments of failures were clues as to what I needed to do. I needed to understand that that job wasn't right for me. I needed to understand that all the stuff that I was avoiding, like being in front of an audience, is something that I needed to actually step into. And I needed to know how to tell my story effectively to be able to get into the right audience. And so even when I spoke at TEDx 3 times this year, people would say, how did you get to TEDx 3 times? I'll tell them I had 18 chances to figure that out because I applied to 18 times over 2 years, and they all said no. And eventually the right story struck when I was able to connect it appropriately with the theme. And all those failures were breadcrumbs to the ultimate destination.
That's awesome. I really like that. I'm going to steal a question from Tim Ferriss. And this question he asks people where he says, what advice would you give someone who is fresh out of college and is just really excited about life?
Yeah. So what's really exciting me about life?
Well, like, what advice would you give to somebody who just came out of college and is really excited about life, but doesn't really know what to do with their career or where to go or how to follow and find their passions?
I would always say start with your story. That's what I did, right? We are at such a time where it's not the industrial age anymore. It's the connection age. And that means you have a blog, you have a podcast, you have access to creating a blog, podcast, you have social media and all that. And just start showing up as you are and tell your stories. My mission statement for my company is use your difference to make a difference. That's the foundation of everything that I do. So I'm always encouraging people to do that. And so even with me, when I moved to this city with nothing but a dream, right, and just ambition, New York City media, my biggest role models are the late Nelson Mandela and Oprah Winfrey. I wanted to do that. I just said, well, I'm just going to start writing for my story. I'm going to start saying, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. This is what I've done. And then when you start to write your story, start to talk about what you learned from your experiences, and connect that with whatever problem you want to solve that day. Eventually, you start to notice a theme. Also, the other thing that you need to do if you feel like you're lost and you're really excited about life is be really great at self-awareness. One of the best things about self-awareness is that you're able to know when you can leverage your strengths and when you can outsource your weaknesses. And so if you're still struggling with figuring out what your strengths are, you can just ask 10 people. Have them include your friends, your family, and your past colleagues, people that have worked with you, people that maybe went to school with you, people that have seen that. Or go on Facebook and put a status. What would you say are my 3 greatest strengths? Look for those trends, and as you're telling your story, try and incorporate all those things and see what happens. When I did that exercise, people would say there's like compassionate, empathy, and all that. But one of the trends I noticed was that you're a connector, you're an educator, you're a teacher. And I'm not the traditional teacher, but on stages I'm doing that. On podcasts, I'm sort of doing that. I'm connecting people with that. And whenever I'm on get an interview like this, I'm teaching people strategies to embrace their higher self. So absolutely, yeah. Start with yourself, tell your story, and then get really great at self-awareness.
That's really good advice. Thanks, Teo. So let's go ahead and talk about your current projects and kind of future projects. And just disclaimer, I am a part of their 10-day challenge, guys. I'm going to put the link down below. Highly recommend that you guys join. It is awesome. And that's with Amanda Rivera, and it's their Thought Leader Academy. But Teo, can you kind of talk to us about that?
Yes. So this is one of the great things that happens when you start to do what it is that you're going to do, what it is that you're meant to do, and you show up as you are. So I was doing my stuff. Everybody already knows me or listens to any of my podcasts. We hear me mention an Oprah reference once in a while. And someone said, you two should meet. Both of you love Oprah. She's doing something with Oprah. And we just built a friendship off of that. And we were connecting online, and then it was one of those moments I just got my talk, I think it was my second text talk, and she was like, or third, and she was like, yo, you're really good at this stuff. And she said, yeah, so I was like, thank you. This is weird for me to say that I'm good at it, because previous years I felt like I was failing. And she was like, well, how about we come together and create a course where you teach people how to speak and I teach people how to get their messages seen in publications. And then I was like, Amanda, that's a great idea. But even bigger, my ultimate mission is to build the next set of global leaders. And I know that you've talked about that in the past. You want to build the next set of global leaders. I feel like the best way to build the next set of global leaders is through 2 ways. Helping them connect across cultures, which is something I already do in my company, or helping people tell the story so that they can go impact the right audience. This particular platform, Thought Academy, can help them tell those stories. And she was like, yes, that's true. We can do that. And so I was like, okay, so we're going to help them. We're building their brands. We're going to help them get seen in the publications. But more importantly, we're going to help them really hone their story and know who they are, truly who they are, and how they can craft it so that it makes an impact on stages, but it also attracts the right type of attention and all the publications that will get them seen. And then we came together, we crafted this program, this course, we called it the Thought Leader Program, because for anyone to really change the world, you have to be seen as a thought leader or someone that has influence. And so what we're doing is we're building a community of aspiring change makers who want to truly change the world, and we're helping them craft the messages, whether it's their branding, whether it's their speaking career, whether it's figuring out to get on media publications, whether it's working on mindset. And we're sharing all the strategies that we've learned combined that has gotten us in 150 countries, that has gotten us to average over 50 speeches a year. It has gotten us in multiple publications, from Forbes to Fortune to Huffington Post to Entrepreneur. And we just put that together in one program for 3 months. And we're hoping to really send up as many leaders as we can in 2018 to go change the world.
It's awesome. I've loved it. The speakers you guys have brought in over the last couple of days have been fire.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for participating. Really, really appreciate that.
Oh, of course. No, I appreciate you guys putting it together. For those of you that are watching that did see Amanda's interview that we had on this podcast, I know a lot of you love that. But, Teo, like I said, is her partner. You guys have to check that out. You will learn a ton. It's probably one of the best Facebook groups I'm a part of right now.
Wow. This is high praise. Thank you so much.
It's awesome. And the engagement level is high, because I'm used to being in Facebook groups where people really never engage. It'll say like 13,000 members, but nobody's engaging. And y'all are just blowing my mind with the engagement.
Yeah, and that's been the biggest surprise for me and Amanda as well. But I think if there's anything I can tell to anyone, if you want to change the world, you want to make an impact, whenever you figure out what it is that you're good at, always make sure that you're tying that to a problem you can solve. A lot of people operate the world from a me-first centric type of view. But if you come from a genuine place where this is who I am, this is what I can do, but I want to help you solve that problem, you start to build a following, because you're basically charting the course. You're a lighthouse that's guiding them towards that path. And if you start to think about it from that point of view, don't be surprised when more people start to follow you, even though you're like, I'm just tired. Like, who cares about me? but people are attracted to that. So yeah, have a service mindset.
I love that. It's so true. So I want to respect your time. So before I ask the last question, I'm going to sneak one other one in there, and it's something that I've talked with a couple people about, and that's monetization. So for me, for example, and all my viewers know this, full transparency, I have not monetized anything yet. So it's just been 6 months of me just providing content and value because I love doing it. So my question to you would be, obviously it's different for each case, but when do you start monetizing, or when would you say a personal brand, especially since all these people are in that group, should start monetizing?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it definitely varies for different people. And for me, someone with like what you call quote unquote popular podcast, for me, I'd never really used that as a monetize to get the ads. Sometimes occasional ads get their sponsors, but what I did for me was I started to look around and see how can I leverage this opportunity into a wider audience. And I just sat and looked at the world, and I was looking at what are the current world problems. There's Brexit, there's the current administration, there's a lot of stuff happening all over the world where people aren't actually listening to each other, connecting across cultures. And I was like, well, that's what I do with this podcast. That's what I do when I speak. How about I start to find the pockets of people that need this information the most? And for me, identify my target audience. And I saw that on one end, it's corporations and people want to be able to retain and hire a diverse set of staff. And one of the best ways to do that is to make sure that people are ultimately who they are at the workplace, but also able to attract diversity. So I said, well, this is what I've done. You say you've done this for 6 months. I would go to someone and say, I've done this for 6 months. I have this expertise. I've built this audience. I come from a place of expertise that I want to be able to pass that information off to you. And so I started to basically say, how can I leverage my existing platform as an expertise? And people said, sure, we'll bring you on for a while. And then initially I did it for free. And then after I got enough testimonials, it became undeniable for people to say, look, we're going to hire you to do this. So I turned everything into consulting and speaking or teaching opportunities. So that's the way I monetize it. So, I consult with my company. I speak on stages, and then I'm launching a course right now. So it's always a teaching and giving moment for me. And, other people can use ads and all this type of things and influencers. There are certainly things that I've experimented with in the past, but for me, the most genuine thing for me, just because it feels like the most authentic to me, is when I feel like I'm really giving someone a set of tools or expertise. So, yeah.
Awesome. I really appreciate that. So I do want to respect your time, so I'm going to ask that last question, and that's, is there anything on your heart or on your mind right now that you either want people to know about you or a specific cause?
Not necessarily about me, but I want people to really tap into who they are as people. There was Jameer, one of the speakers that came yesterday in our 10-day challenge. He said that everyone really needs to say, I am value at some point in their lives. And I find that a lot of people, and I've certainly gone through this, a lot of people don't understand the value that they have, and a lot of times they give their power to people thinking that in order for you to be great, you have to be like someone. And in that process, you don't really be, you're not really being like yourself. So I want you all to really take time and sit with yourself and find out what it is that you're really good at. Even if it's sports or knitting or whatever, just write down everything that you're good at. And then do that exercise I asked you. Ask 10 of your friends, put it out of status. Ask them to tell you what they see are your greatest strengths, because sometimes you're in the canvas and then everybody else can see the full picture. Sit with that information and start to really recognize the value of yourself. And once you start your day with these type of things, you're going to start to see more trends than you realize. It sounds so simple, like such a simple exercise, but that really has the ability for you to change your mindset, because success is an inside job, as one of my friends like to say. And if you're not as healthy inside, doesn't matter how much you make in the future, because it's really going to be magnified by that wealth. So make sure that you really recognize the value that you have and do the work.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Teo. Really appreciate having you on. You provided tons of great advice. Guys, check the links out down below. Go join that 10-day Facebook challenge group. Check out their Thought Leader Academy, and go follow Teo's personal page as well as his business page. All the links are down below.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much. And thank you for having me. You have an amazing platform. I'm truly humbled that you thought of me to embrace the change. So I'm looking forward to your book, and I'll definitely be one of the first to provide it. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you guys next time.